Okay, great. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this session. I'm Gabriel, Management Executive at First Digital, a First Technology company. We're quite excited to host today's event, which will give you a bit of a deep dive into Microsoft Viva. This is a second, more in-depth session from a webinar that we hosted on Viva a few weeks ago. The demand for this webinar was impressive, and we believe you will find quite valuable or even more valuable than the first session we had, which was an overview of Viva. Hybrid working became the norm, and we learned to run large parts of our business using remote tools with remote people. We did that quite quickly during hard lockdown. Kind of didn't have a choice. However, with this came some new challenges, and at the heart of these challenges are the physical distance between our information workers and our business operations, and the physical distance between employees. We know that there's a mental impact on people that work in isolation. We also know that there seems to be both positive and negative impact on productivity. During hard lockdown, there was without a doubt a measurable increase in productivity. As I've mentioned in the previous webinar, Microsoft's own research on the analytics from Office 365 usage patterns clearly proved this. But does that productivity still exist today, that productivity gain? Well, according to Microsoft, it does. But a recent new trend is emerging that Microsoft refers to as the productivity paranoia. And this refers to the disbelief, specifically under managers, that their employees are indeed productive in a hybrid world, today still. So today's webinar takes a bit of a more in-depth look at some of the collection of tools that Microsoft has specifically developed to address these concerns, which overall offers an end-to-end employee engagement platform that we know as Microsoft Viva today. Just before we start, a quick bit of housekeeping. Today's session will be recorded, and the recording will be made available on our YouTube channel afterwards. Those details will be supplied with you after the event. Please feel free to refer a colleague to it who might have missed today's session. Due to the size of the audience, everybody will be muted, and we ask that you post any questions in the Q&A option in your Teams client. You will find access to that Q&A window by clicking the Q&A icon at the top of your Teams window. Questions asked will be answered during the session by our hosts. In the unlikely event that we don't get all your questions answered, we will allow a little bit of time at the end of the session to cover any unanswered questions. Today's session will be hosted by Gary Finberg, our Senior Technical Manager in our Digital Workplace Division within First Digital, and Chris Botha, the Commercial Manager of our Digital Workplace team. Microsoft is a long-standing partner of First Digital. It's a relationship that really dates back to the inception of First Digital, and we are very excited to demonstrate their technology today, especially this deep dive into specific modules of Microsoft Viva. Also in the background is Stephanie Brainard. She's managing this webinar, so if you have any questions, please contact her using the Teams chat function. First Digital builds out many value-added services across various technology verticals. Our business is made up of 4 main divisions: our custom development business, which focuses on application, web, mobile application, and application integration and DevOps principles. On the right-hand side is represented our automation and integration business, who really specialize in vendor-based automation technologies such as Nintex, K2, Microsoft BizTalk, and OutSystems. We also have a fully fledged Microsoft data and analytics team that focus on data infrastructure services all the way through to machine learning and data analytics using Microsoft's Cloud BI stack. And then lastly, the team that's representing us today on this webinar is our Digital Workplace team. These guys do all of our content management platforms, low-code development, specifically using Microsoft Power Platform, employee collaboration and self-service features that exist in and around Teams, and also most importantly, they are our specialists on Microsoft Viva. Great, just before I hand over to them for today's session, I'd like to quickly poll our audience. So you should see the poll question come up in your Teams client right now, and if you can make your selection. And the question that we're asking our audience today is, are you currently using any goal setting framework or framework tools for employees? And the options that we're presenting to you are no, or yes, we do some employee goal setting, but it's pretty informal, or yes, we do have a formal approach such as defining annual or biannual KPIs, OKRs, or SMART goals. I'll give you guys a few seconds just to submit your response. Okay, great. Standing at just short of 20 responses at this point. I think we've got a fair spread between no, yes, an informal approach, or yes, a more formal approach. This is valuable insight for Gary and Chris, given today's session. So thank you for that. So in this session, Gary and Chris will explain the components of Microsoft Viva and give you a practical example of the technology in action. They'll be focusing on 3 specific modules within Viva: Goals, Engage, and Pulse. So without any further delay, Gary, over to you.
Thanks, Gabriel. Just going to share my screen. Okay, great. So hi, everyone. Thanks for joining today. And today we're going to be talking a little bit more around Microsoft Viva and employee engagement. So as Gabriel mentioned, note that we covered all of the Viva basics in the previous webinar. And Stephanie is going to add a link to that into the end of the deck and also at the end of the call, so you can access that. In this session, the goal is, pardon the pun, to do a deeper dive into Viva goals and also talk about some of the new modules such as Engage and Pulse. So just a quick recap on what we talked about before for context. So Viva at its heart is an integrated employee experience platform. It's built within Microsoft 365 and Teams, and that gives you the ability to support connection, insight, purpose, and growth in your organization, all while leveraging your existing infrastructure and familiar tools. Also, Viva is about creating employee experiences and not just pushing new tools. So that's not the goal, to flood you with a new set of tools. It's the opposite. So users, I think we can all identify that we have way too many tools to deal with, and we typically have multiple applications and browser windows open at any given time. And this causes what we call application and task switching, which is really distracting and counterproductive. So the overall goal of Viva is to simplify that experience by leveraging Teams, common familiar tool, as a single pane of glass to get our work done. And Teams has had exponential growth. It's the most phenomenal growth curve for technology and adoption since its release. And that's why Microsoft chose to deliver Viva on this Teams platform. Users are already using it for meetings, chats, calls, collaboration on documents and project planning, plus more. Plus its tight integration with Office 365 stack and the flexibility and ease of integration with third-party apps and services. So now let's take a closer look at goals. So this is a brand new goal setting and management solution from Microsoft on the Viva stack. And its purpose is to help drive clarity around your objectives and key results. And it makes it seamless for teams to track progress against them as they work. So for example, if you're a team leader, we'll show you how the intuitive goal setting experience and then also the tight Microsoft integration for your team members to record their contribution to goals. So for example, goals also plays into Microsoft's focus at the moment, which is around bringing all the work experience into what they call the flow of work. So in this scenario, it's the chat in Teams. So, you know, where users will be potentially required to upgrade or what's called check in some aspect of goals. Maybe they need to increment the percentage of a task that's assigned to them. They don't need to go to the app itself. This can be surfaced for them in their Teams chat interface, you know, via an adaptive card. They're able to respond to that and, you know, just save that card. It writes it back to goals. So Viva itself is all about putting people at the center, and it's the first platform that brings together systems of work with systems of support into an integrated employee experience. And goals is all about alignment and purpose, so that it's easier for us to connect the dots between our efforts, either as an individual contributor and the broader organizational goals at the same time, if you're a leader. So if you're a leader, you can bring more clarity along with the criteria for success. So it's designed to address both the organization and employee pressures because on the one hand, as Gabriel mentioned, organizations are facing unprecedented levels of disruption and uncertainty, whether due to technology disruptions or other factors. And on the other hand, the pandemic has made hybrid and remote work the norm, which in and of itself has created communication silos, and even worse, leads us to a loss of sense of purpose. Users are disconnected from the company, they're disconnected from their teams, and there's that divide. So we're also seeing that a high percentage of employees are now looking for more purpose in their work. And a lot of the time, that's because they don't have context about how they're doing really matters within the bigger scheme of things. And that impacts their motivation. So they just feel isolated and disconnected. So with Viva Goals, whether you're a manager or a member of a team, it's easier to align and stay focused on the strategic projects of the organization and work together to accelerate progress. And this clarified progress will hopefully lead to less burnout because you can prioritize your efforts. Plus, there's this bi-directional clarity on everyone's contributions towards a shared goal. So just wanted to set that context before we go in and look at a little bit more specifically around goals. So just to the screen, these are the kind of core modules that, initially the first wave of release in Viva. And today I'll be talking about goals. And then I'll hand over to Chris, who's going to talk about some of the newer modules like Viva Engage and Viva Pulse. So let's get into a bit of, deeper dive around goals. It's all around purpose and alignment. So core to understanding of goals before we actually go to the demo of goals in the Teams interface is just to understand what it is. So goals is a kind of interface built into Teams that facilitates the implementation of what are called OKRs. So OKRs is an acronym, and it's effectively objectives and key results. OKR itself is a goal-setting methodology that helps organizations and teams set measurable goals, and it's used by top Silicon Valley companies such as Google. It actually was sort of founded with Intel initially. Goals is geared for strategically implementing these OKRs and communicating them down the chain from board to managers to teams and individuals, all in the familiar Teams interface. And this is going to allow managers and team members to understand the corporate mission and their role in achieving those goals. And it creates a feeling of inclusion and fosters pride in their work. So that's a core thing that Microsoft are trying to deliver with goals is not just an interface for kind of managing OKRs, in that sort of hierarchical structure, but also to kind of give it transparency, bring that visibility and transparency on company objectives and teams objectives all the way down to individual users, so they can understand their effort and their contribution in the context of the broader company goals, with a goal of kind of fostering this feeling of inclusion and pride in their work. Because typically if you're just making a small widget and you haven't got a real feeling for the context, you're going to feel isolated. Now, OKRs are based on something called Doer's Goal Formula. So effectively, what that means is I need to, and then you insert the objective, and we'll look at how these break down as measured by key results, via key initiatives and projects. So this goal formula that you can use to kind of effectively kind of structure your OKRs. So if we look at an example just to get into what these break down to, so the objective defines where you need to go. So it should set a clear direction, and it's the target you're aiming at for any level of the organization. So whether it's, you might be setting objectives at a company-wide level, a department level, or a team level. So examples of an objective might be conquer the SA market, conquer the global market, make our customers love our support team, become an awesome place to work. So they can also sort of be informal. And then we move to key results. So key results are kind of metrics that show us if we're moving the needle in the right direction. So with our objectives, we'd stated our kind of targets. With the key results, they show us if we're getting closer to the objective. So an example, so let's say we took the top level objective of make our customers love our support team. Our key results that we might define underneath that would be customer satisfaction score of 97%. So we want to target that. That's a meaningful increase. The average first response time for a ticket or to a customer request is 1 hour. And the average solution times to close that ticket is 12 hours. And then these are all supported by what are called initiatives. So what do I need to do to achieve those key results? So that the steps you need to take to reach your objective and the action your team or organization takes to reach those objectives and achieve the key results. So if we just extend our example here of making our customers love our support team, you can see we've got our key results, customer satisfaction score of 90%, we've got those, and then the initiatives are the activities that are in support of these key results. So how are we going to achieve that? Well, we're going to interview 10 new support candidates, for example. We want to publish our FAQs, so that knowledge is available to support engineers to respond quicker. Or we might launch an in-app live chat so we can respond directly. So this is the basic structure, and effectively you would plug each of these into that goal formula. There are a couple of kind of guiding sort of principles on this. Is you set them annually and quarterly. So typically that aligns with like a company's, financial, you have an annual sort of goal, you have quarterly goals. So it makes sense to kind of align them with those. Don't have too many. So you also want to keep this, the tendency or the temptation when you're developing your OKRs is to create many, because obviously there are many ways most companies could improve. But don't have too many. Keep 5 objectives as a max with 4 key results each, and set that as your maximum for a quarter. You can obviously evolve this as you go and get more experience. And having more is just going to actually defeat the purpose and distract you. And then make them challenging. So there's no point setting, like easily achievable goals. And the research around OKRs shows they use what's called stretch targets. So set a challenging target that makes, is not completely unreasonable, like set up offices on the moon, but make it something that's reasonable, but stretches you to get there. And if you can make 70 to 80% of those, you're doing really well. And then another key thing is make your key results quantitative rather than qualitative. So where possible, try and reduce that measure or that indicator to numeric, because with performance management, quantitative measures are quite difficult to measure. Qualitative, they're typically more like narrative, and it's hard to kind of parse that down to a specific number. Just briefly, and then I'm going to go to the demo, is to just talk a bit quickly through this OKR cycle. So this is typically how you would go about this. And all of this does need to happen, as a planning before you get into goals interface itself. So at the beginning of the year, your company is going to define your set of high-level strategic OKRs, and with input from the team. You also want to try and get that kind of inclusivity happening from the ground. Set your tactical OKRs. So teams develop their technical OKRs. And when we talk about a bi-directional approach, it just means that it's not top-down. There's a transparency, and that's one of the principles of this, is that these OKRs should be open for all. They're public domain, within the company. And it's not, again, like in the domain of the CXO level or kind of boards or kind of a teams level, management level. The whole purpose of this is to make it transparent and allow that bi-directional visibility. Map your interdependencies so that you can show your alignment and that you're not, these things aren't all going off on their own kind of tangents. Have regular weekly check-ins. So again, this is all around course correction, tweaking. This needs to be like a living process that you're adapting and responding to as you go. Have a kind of what we call like a midterm OKR review so that you can see, how you're tracking. And then also importantly, at the end of each cycle, do a retrospective so that you can see lessons learned and refine your process going forward. And then just kind of two aspects. I've mentioned some of these, but the benefits here are that it allows you to kind of create this cross-functional cooperation and improve your collaboration. You can navigate rapid change and reduce risk more efficiently, create documented and measurable accountability. So that's often core in a business. There's no coordination or around accountability, and it's not measurable, and things just like slide from quarter to quarter. And then importantly also to note, the reason for all of this is that historically goals are generally defined in the boardroom. So, lower down the ladder, users haven't got a clue like of what the real business drivers are at the top level. And one of the purposes of this sort of transparency is that users get invested. So if I'm like a developer in a team and I'm busy building a component, I might not have any, well, probably without tools like this, I wouldn't have any awareness around how that factors into the broad company goals. But if I understand that, I can have pride in what I'm doing because I know it's contributing to, I'm not just building an app. And typically, historically, these are not always clearly communicated. So while the CXO or the board level kind of understand these top level currents or kind of mission statements, they're not communicated down. So what I'm going to do is just get the Teams interface up. Okay, guys. So this is what Viva Goals looks like, on its landing screen. And kind of note immediately that we're inside the Teams interface. So this is part of this whole initiative, bring everything into the flow of people's work. They don't need to be application switching, Viva Goals, it can be pinned to this left menu. So really easy to get it started. So basically what we're looking at is a landing screen for goals. And you'll see down the left, I've got sort of the first digital is mentioned here. Now, this is what's called the organization in goals. And it's like one of the organizational, besides being our actual organization, it's an organizational principle. So these are containers within goals to define this hierarchical structure of these OKRs and the supporting components. And you can see I've got, I can search, I've got various options here. I've got an Explorer view. So I can go and see things like, I can view it, I can flatten this out. I can view all objectives. I can filter it and view kind of all of my objectives. I can look at overdue OKRs, kind of not updated, etc. I can set up my teams here. And again, this interface is security trimmed. So based on my role, my security role that's assigned, I'll be able to see or not see various elements of the interface and be able to action things or not, depending on who I am. So I can, in my case, I'm an admin, so I can set up teams, I can set up users. And I'm not going to go into details here, but there's a case in point, I'm an admin, so I'm seeing this node. If I wasn't, I wouldn't see these admin tools. And here you can just set up, I'm not going to go into it in the interest of time, but you can set up all kind of aspects of, this environment. You can set up your teams. You can set up your time period. So what is, in our case, we're using, there's an annual bracket, which is the financial year, and then it's broken down into quarters. And the idea there is that you're able to, when you create OKRs or any aspects of them, you're able to align them to time periods. So I could create things that I'm aligning with Q4, whereas Q2 is current. You can set up your notifications. Something important to note is you can also set up your integrations. So we've set up a couple here just to illustrate this point, but Goals integrates with a whole lot of external kind of capabilities. So we can Currently, we've got it set up to integrate with Excel Online or with Planner. So if I've got tasks that, at the lowest level, obviously an initiative is going to be broken down into tasks that we want to also measure and achieve, because they're going to roll up to the delivery of that initiative. So now, we can integrate that with Planner. We can integrate this with Excel Online. So users can update tasks in the tools they're busy using, which is integrated and pushes those and advances the task completion or whatever it might be in goals. Taking that even further, this integrates with like DevOps. So you can it's got a rich DevOps integration. So you can kind of manage all of the actionable work that comprises this out of DevOps. And the same with SQL, if you've got your data sources being written into SQL, which can then feed dynamically. So as you'll see, when we go and update an item in here, that we can specify whether that data is updated dynamically from an integrated data source, or whether we manually want to go and I want to go and say, okay, well, this is now at 50%. So those integrations are great. It also integrates with Jira and tons of other systems like Monday.com and everything, and that's growing all the time. So I don't want to go too far into the admin dashboard, but that's where things get configured. And now into goals itself. So effectively, the way goals works is it's a hierarchical structure, right? So each of these elements that you see pinned to the left here is, you could think of it as a container that, and so at the top level, I've got first digital OKR. So this is our organization. And then I've got the management team, like digital workplace management OKRs. I've got one of our dev teams called Syntax Society, their OKRs. And now I can filter by my OKRs. So you'll note that up at the top, just for the purposes of this demo, all of these OKRs are assigned to me, and hence I'm going to see them down here. But in a real world implementation of this, I'm going to, my view is going to be a filtered view of what is defined at the top, because some OKRs are going to be owned by Chris or by Vimpy or by Gabriel, in which case, obviously, I'm not going to see those. But this is a really useful way. So I've got the visibility at the top to see everything. And just to move along here, you'll see there's some tabs. So these are a flattened view of all the projects that are, contribute to achieving these OKRs. There's some dashboards which we'll kind of look at. There's analytics and various things. So this is at that top level. And now, so from an organizational perspective, I might be viewing things at this level. From a team management perspective, I might look at it from our digital workplace management. From the dev team perspective, they might look at things broken down by their specific projects. But from a personal level, I can view my OKRs. So this just allows me to focus on things that are important to me. So now, kind of looking at this experience, so what we've got at the top here are OKRs. And I'm going to expand one so that you can see how this hierarchical structure looks. So, and you can see these are kind of broken down into as I mentioned, this is the objective. So in this case, say this objective is to keep the company financial stable by decreasing cash burn, right? So that's my top level objective. Now, in workshop and with conjunction with teams and the partners, you decide on what are the objectives that are going to roll up, or the key results that are going to contribute. So maybe we say consolidate internal work tools to decrease monthly spend, increase employee working full-time from home from 20% to 50%, decrease variable expenses from 8% to 6%. So you can see these are our kind of key results. And down here, we've got a project or an initiative that kind of contributes to that. So, just so you can see how this hierarchy works. And what you can do is, we can go and, if we decide we need two other kind of key results that are going to contribute to this, we can go and add, and then once we add them, we align them to this top objective. So you've got a drop-down list in your create new key result, which will let you select the alignment to a specific objective. And now I'm just going to kind of move along to show some of the interface. So here you're able to check in, and basically check-in is literally just creating an update. So if say you've come out of a meeting, you've updated some of the metrics and you want to check them in, you're able to do that. Here, if I wanted to add a child item, I get the option. I can add a key result, a project, or a child objective. So again, this is like a hierarchical structure. So you can have a nested scenario where you've got child objectives that contain their own key results and projects that roll up to a top level objective. So maybe within this top level objective, there's some sort of objectives that themselves require like a granular breakdown. So it's very, very flexible, and goals kind of manages that whole roll up and the weighting and the contribution of all its child components to these top level goals. And then you can see along here, you can see just at a quick view, that I'm the owner of this. It's part of this First Digital team. It shows you the top level status and progress. And then there are various other things, like you can see, and you're also able to customize this view. You can add a lot more columns. You've got like various options, so you can kind of manage these columns. You can show various kind of views. You can show a KPI panel. You can view as a chart. So there's lots of ways to kind of slice and dice this. So if we want to look at some detail around this specific objective, so goals provides a really rich view, in this kind of panel on the right-hand side. So for example, this keep the company financially stable by decreasing cash burn. So I can check in, I can comment, I can share this with a colleague. And I've got various other options. So here I mentioned you can go in and edit this. Obviously, I can align it to an OKR. I can add child items. I've got various functions that I can perform. And then there's a tabbed interface that shows a lot of detail. So I can see how it's tracking, and I can actually move this with I've got a kind of easy interface to kind of slide this. And you can see underneath, it tells me like its components, and now here's the metric that I need to define. So maybe I want to update that before I check it in to that. You've got various statuses. Now effectively these are thresholds, so they respond to the banding that is set up. So the kind of metric here is current is 90, the target is 100%, and what we're expecting is 89%, to show us on track. So I've just increased that. And what you can also do is you can break the inheritance if you need. So typically you wouldn't want to do that, but you could do that. And then I'm able to kind of check that back in. And you can see this is now going to increment up to 95%. It's obviously still on track. I've got various ways that I can view this. So something to note about this graph is that I can set incremental check-ins, right? And incremental kind of checkpoints. So say we've got, for this quarter, we've got like we've got a few months to achieve this particular target. What I can do is I can say, still show me, I want to see what the status is after each month, and then that will allow us to almost micromanage this process and see how we're tracking so we can course correct. So you'll see, I mean, this is a bit flat at the moment, but there are actually two lines. So it's highs is tracking against expected. So you can actually see that divergence from how you're tracking and then go in and remediate. And I can go and align this somewhere else. I can change any of this information. We can add descriptions. We can add tags. So and those obviously benefit this in search. And then it shows me my breakdown of my key results. It shows me my projects. I can add more projects. So say we realize that along the way that there's some sub piece of functionality that is core to achieving that objective, we can add that project and kind of manage all of this in this interface. So you can see really, really rich interface for managing everything that's going on with these. And you'll see this flows down. So we've got the same experience. You know, say we're going to start this. You know, we're able to kind of drive it from here. You're also able to make this full screen, you know, so to kind of go and view this experience. What we can also do is, so I'm not going to go into the other ones. They're there to kind of just illustrate the point that you can have these kind of multiple different like OKRs. So this is around building a world-class company culture with its key results and objectives. This is about driving growth, that type of thing. And I think you can also open a full page view of this so that you've got the real estate to work in. And then something else that's very useful is you're able to create custom dashboards. Effectively, what you're able to do with your dashboards is, let me just go to a different one and see if I can. These dashboards are configurable dashboards where you can set, you can make custom multiple dashboards, and similar to, you know, when you're working in DevOps, you're actually able to customize those dashboards by adding widgets. You know, so widgets might be key results, there might be initiatives, objectives, how all of these things are kind of tracking. You can add kind of narrative insights, you know, kind of components to it. So become really, really useful. Something I also wanted to point out is if you're going to add a new objective, Microsoft, and you don't know where to get started, Microsoft do give some samples. So this makes it really easy to get started. It gives a framework. So you could look at the company objectives, you know, and they give you a couple of key results. There's the objective, the key results, and the projects. There's some for sales, some for marketing, you know, some for customer success. So, you know, just say you wanted to add this, you just simply click add, and it's now been added. So now you've kind of got this new this kind of new option added to your list, and they come with you know, all of these components that you can now go in and edit, and it gives you that structure. Just would like to show you the dashboard. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's taking a little bit of time to render. But, you know, guys, in the interest of time, I'm going to stop there. I do need to hand over to Chris. But this is just a kind of a quick little dive into Viva goals. Effectively, like a goal setting and alignment capability, really, really flexible. You know, allows you to define whatever represents your kind of hierarchical structure for your objectives, your results, and your initiatives, projects, and tasks. So we can also add tasks to these, assign them to users. They'll get the tasks in Teams chat and be able to respond. And with kind of multiple sort of dashboard views of these, which you can then also kind of put into, it's unfortunately this is not rendering for some reason, but you're also able to put this into a presentation mode, which is quite useful. So here it actually is loading. So guys, with that, I'm going to hand over to Chris, and yeah, we can take questions at the end.
Super.
So over to you, Chris.
Super. Thanks for that, Gary. Powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. All right, guys, I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Do let me know through a quick thumbs up in the chat if people can see my screen. Sorry, can you guys confirm? All right, super. Okay, thanks for that, guys. All right, so just to quickly bring things in context for us here, the single pane of glass experience, powered by Viva Connections and SharePoint. Welcome to the modern entry point for your tools and experience across the productivity stack in Office 365. So this truly means that our SharePoint elements, our Viva elements, our Power Platform elements can all live in this single experience. Ultimately meaning that whether I'm on my mobile device, whether I'm on my tablet device, my Windows machine or Mac, I always have access to this content and resources wherever I am. So looking at your screen here in front of us right now, we're looking at our modern SharePoint Online experience embedded into Microsoft Teams, a space for all of our company communication, our news, our updates, and diving into our Viva Connections dashboard, which ultimately allows for targeted content delivery within the organization. So when I'm looking at this dashboard, it talks to tasks that's outstanding for me, whether there's pending approvals for me, whether there's upcoming goals that requires my participation, or even learning modules that could be suggested to me or that I could suggest to the team. Part and parcel of this Viva Connection dashboard is for us to have the ability to create these adaptive cards to ultimately connect to data inside or outside of the organization. And embedding these Viva components into this experience further complements your modern communication hub for your organization. So without further ado, right from here, we can see we can access that Viva Goals element and the new Viva Engage component, and the one that I'll touch on in a moment would be Viva Pulse. So through Viva Engage, we can build meaningful relationships at work, giving employees a place to connect, to express themselves and find belonging. Ultimately allowing formal and informal omni-channel communication throughout the organization by keeping everyone informed and engaged wherever they are across the desktop or mobile device channels when it matters and for who it matters. Gone are the days of our distribution lists and emailers. We have the power to involve the relevant communities right here inside this Teams experience. So looking at my screen right now, I'm looking at the Viva Engage homepage. As you can see, I'm all caught up, but from here I can explore our communities. I can raise a discussion, quickly pose a question, potentially raise praise for an individual, or run a quick poll for the organization. So just as a quick example here, well done, Gary, on the Viva Goals demo. Powerful stuff. All right, who do I want to praise? I pick from my Active Directory, and I can choose to post it to a specific community or storyline within our organization. So let's say, for example, I want to post this in my digital workspace place. I can go ahead and praise, and this entry will now be visible in our digital workplace community. So just quickly jumping to our communities, ultimately allowing us for a little bit more social components within this Office 365 space, where we can share those thoughts, ideas, help employees get the right answers at the right time, upvoting our replies and marking best answers as reusable crowdsourced solutions for our organization. So here we can see in the digital workplace, now everybody in the team can see the kudos or praise that I've posted to Gary, with the ability to embed videos, to embed external links, or notices right here in the flow of daily work. Members can contribute, people can use similar social tools like liking, pinning, commenting on these activities inside Viva Engage, and ultimately providing a central hub for our social element for the organization. A quick jump here to our all company hub, you'll be able to see something like, for example, Gabriel Malherbe completing the Comrades Marathon. He's currently front and center here on our community homepage. Included in Viva Engage is also the storylines ability, ultimately my profile showing all of the components that I've posted, news and activities that I've liked, polls that I've created, and a new feature that's currently rolling out called our Leadership Corner, allowing us to connect with leadership within the organization. So Viva Engage is all about relationships, fostering communities, connecting, joining discussions, raising those questions, sending out praise or quick polls for the organization. Okay, and moving swiftly along, let's jump into Viva Pulse. Okay, so Viva Pulse empowers leaders and managers to seek and act on feedback when it matters, right inside our daily flow in Microsoft Teams. creating a feedback survey, or a pulse as it's called here in Microsoft Teams, to instantly connect with our intended audiences for confidential and rapid input on everything from project performance, staff well-being, leadership sentiment, or even a new project rolling out within the organization. These pulses are short, rapid feedback cycles with the ability to be repeatable, so I can quickly send that out again next month or next quarter or next project, with the ability for the organization to create these templates to ultimately get the feedback at the right time for the right audiences. So here is just a quick example. I can use one of our templates for the team member success. It would include a set of customized questions for me already. These questions can be defined and locked down so that no toes are stepped on when sensitive or confidential topics are raised. An important principle behind Viva Pulse is that this is anonymous and confidential feedback. This information can't be used to potentially discriminate against the employee. It's anonymous, it's confidential, and only the owner of the pulse can ultimately see the results. So here I can see a set of questions. For example, asking my resources, do they know what they should be focusing on? Do they have all the resources to do their job well? Do they feel included in the team? Do they have good opportunities to learn and grow within the team? Does the work that I do, is it meaningful to me? With the ability for us to add additional questions, a rating, a multiple choice, or an open text answer. These pulses can then be targeted to specific recipients within the organization. So perhaps I want to target my KZN team, for example, or I want to get feedback from a specific group of individuals. This might be mid-level management or upper management, or potentially from my individual team members. So I can reference Active Directory accounts or reference Office 365 groups to get this pulse to the right intended recipients. It's important to note that with it being confidential and sensitive, that you need at least or at minimum 3 responses for an item to be confidential, and that pulses will only be open for 7 days. You have the ability to further extend it, but the real idea here is to get rapid feedback and to be able to make decisions and obviously changes before the apple cart falls over. So from here, I can target that individuals and send out my pulse to get feedback from my individuals. As a pulse creator, I can see the pulses that I have created and how many people has been invited, and then obviously what is the status of this pulse. I can see who's all the participants. I can see that I've already met the confidentiality, but since the pulse is still open, the report information is not readily available until the pulse is closed for all employees. Okay, so that in a nutshell is Viva Engage and Viva Pulse. I just wanted to quickly mention also the brand new kid on the block that's coming on board shortly, which will be the Viva Amplify. So this is a campaign management tool. Anything from doing my annual director's declarations to my annual gift register declarations come December time for gifts from suppliers, or potentially for a policy that needs to be confirmed and acknowledged within the organization. So Viva Amplify coming soon, and watch this space. Guys, that's all from my side. Gabriel, back to you.
Great, thank you, Chris, so much for that. Let's move over to some questions. So I got one posted directly to me. Chris, I guess you'd be best placed to answer this one. It's the good old bugbear around licensing. Maybe you can just clarify the licensing model, especially in light of users that's already Office 365 licensed with us.
Okay, super. So in almost all of the Office 365 SKUs, the Viva components are included. That means that Viva Connections is available to all users. So bring that SharePoint experience into Teams, that's included. Viva Insights Free is available for all users. Viva Learning Free is available for all users. Viva Engage is available free for all users on Office 365, with the core premium SKUs really being the goals element, where you have to license individuals for goals, the people that I want to set those OKRs for, and the people that will report against those OKRs. And then for our Viva Insights, they do also have a premium wing. that will give us more thought leader and manager insights across the organization. But for the most part, what I demoed here this morning, the Teams, the SharePoint, the Viva Connections, the Viva Engage, and Viva Pulse is included in all Office 365 license SKUs.
Right. Thanks, Chris, for making that clear, and Gary for bringing up that fairly comprehensive deck that outlines those modules and how they relate to licensing. Chris, if anybody that attended today would like to discuss some of their own company particular requirements, how did they get in touch with you guys?
Certainly, we'll definitely share some contact details after this session. Also make obviously the recording available, but please feel free to reach out to myself, Chris at firsttech.digital, or Gary at firsttech.digital to unpack and move your organization into this modern experience. Thank you.
Great. So I'm going to take a quick last glance at the Q&A window and the comments window. It doesn't seem like any more has come in. So I think I'm going to have the great pleasure today to give all of you about 6 minutes back in your diaries. I just want to conclude by thanking Gary and Chris for your time today, taking us through this more deep dive session of Microsoft Viva. For you that joined us late, this was a second follow-up session from a more broader Viva overview that we hosted a few weeks ago. Stephanie, that's arranged today's webinar, will send out a recording of today's webinar, and it will also include a link to the previous webinar and a link to the recording of this webinar that you can revisit yourself or share with any colleagues that might be interested. So, and again, a final thanks to our audience. Thanks for attending today. We hope the session was useful, and we hope to speak to you very soon in the future about some more of Microsoft's technology stack. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Cheers, everyone. Thank you. Bye.